We are here for class number 4 for August 23rd. The title is Social Styles Part 1, the 4 behavioral quadrants. Our facilitator, we do not use the word instructor. Our facilitator is Bev Greene, who did a great job a couple weeks ago with influencing chapter culture. She is a certified LOPT facilitator. LOPT stands for Leadership Operations Project Team. And this is one of the structured classes for the Healthy Chapter Initiative curriculum. And this was one of the top favorites of the district presidents. When I sent out a survey earlier this year, this was one of the top 4 classes picked by the chapter presidents. So that's how we ended up getting these classes. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Bev and I'll put myself on mute. Go ahead, Bev, you're on.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time here. I will be glancing at 2 different screens, so if you see my head moving around, I apologize for that. As Dave said, this is the first of 2 on, what are we doing tonight? On social styles. And it's going to be a lot of chat. We have a lot of requests to you to respond by chat. There won't be any breakout rooms tonight. There's a whole lot of information and a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up on your screen and in the chat. We'll send everything else tomorrow out. And if you have a question, raise your hand. If Dave can find that, I don't have enough screens to be able to see that, but if Dave can see you raising your hand, he's free to interrupt me. So if you have your printout ahead of you, you can go to your page 2, which is the learning objectives. And the learning objectives are: understand the concept of social styles, recognize the 4 social styles, identify your own social styles, and complete a self-inventory. This is a very participative program. You will conduct a self-analysis after this is over. We'll do it at the end, and then we'll revisit that next week so we can see, let's see if I can get this, so we can see where everybody landed and what you learned, and then go on to the next piece. So if you turn to your page 3, we're going to look at the importance of social style. Each one of us is motivated from within, although we're influenced by people, situations, and events in our lives. The decision to act comes from the inside. A lot of our feelings of not me is because of our social style, and this is an effort to help us learn how to engage. So some of the questions might be: are there certain people you have difficulty understanding or working with? What causes the misunderstandings? Do you believe interpersonal skills are as important as technical skills, and why? The point of this discussion requires a sender and a receiver to adapt their communication style to the other person involved. If any of you have ever done the Myers-Briggs, sort of a little bit of that, where if you better understand the person you're speaking with, you have a better understanding of what they might or might not be saying without verbalizing it. So what is your social style? Individuals process stimuli through 3 filters to develop a response. The filters are biochemical, the body's response, such as food, exercise, coffee, sleep. Genetic, which are traits determined by your genes and hereditary characteristics. And conditioned, which is a whole big chunk of this. A person's habitual response to something. And these habits can be observed. You can observe them in yourself with a little self-reflection. You have to understand a couple points of interest. One is that a change in stimuli creates a change in response. And that's called reaction. We've all been there, good or bad. If you are aware of your reactions, you're better off usually to be able to filter them as you need to. We're exposed to many stimuli at one time. It's impossible to consciously process everyone. So our brain creates habitual responses for similar situations, which is what this is sort of all about, letting us know what our styles are. These habitual or conditioned responses form the social style. We spend about 70 to 80% of our time in that style. I wish I could tell you where that statistic came from, but I can't. I'm sorry. The responses of one person become the stimuli for another. I think we can all agree, again, that we do react. Much as we may not want to react, we certainly have certain ways we're coping with things, certain ways we manage our behavior and our comments. So in summary of that, social style is a pattern of behavior or habits that can be observed in other people and that other people can observe in you. Social styles are reflected in what you do and what you say. It's your observable behavior. Again, it's your observable behavior. Social style is not the same as personality, which is a whole different field of study. We're focused instead on some clear and easily observed behaviors that affect our relationships. So B.F. Skinner's research on social styles identified 2 behavior sets that we respond to immediately upon meeting an individual. They function independently of one another, which is why they can be observed separately. Together, they determine a person's social style. And these will take up the first half hour of tonight. They are assertiveness and responsiveness. And the other set is, well, that's the first set we're going to look at. And they're measured on a continuum. So you're going to plot your score on both of these continuums, but not until the class is over. So I just want to remind you that you will know exactly where you sit. So this is a continuum, and the degree to which, I wish I could get something out from the middle of my screen. I actually see what that slide says. Hang on one second. I apologize. The degree to which people control their environment and the people in it. It goes from ask to tell. So you fall somewhere along this continuum. Assertiveness refers to how a person goes about doing a task and achieving a result. It's the effort a person makes to influence the thinking and action of others, or how a person controls their environment. It ranges from ask-oriented to tell-oriented. So we're going to start with the ask person. It's on the left. It just comes up first. And this is where we're going to ask you to respond with your chat. The ask-oriented person pays more attention to how results can be achieved. Because this style focuses on the process, the how of getting results. They tend to be seen as deliberate, quiet, and moderate. They have low levels of assertiveness and are called askers. I will give you a start to the chat. They might be, and don't feel bad about using terms that you may seem are harsh. Be harsh, be gentle, whatever comes to your mind of what you think about an ask-oriented person. First 3 I'm going to throw out there are deliberate, quiet, moderate. So if you guys will chat, please, and I will open up my chat. What other characteristics do you feel that a person who has an ask personality might use? So does this person ask questions or make statements? Introvert, people pleaser, okay. Does a person state strong or moderate opinions? Needs lots of detail. What first impression does this person make for you? More patient than not, okay. How does this person make decisions?
So is everyone watching the chat to see these answers?
Yeah, please do that. Okay. Do you just see this person as using or not using power? Does a person take the initiative or let others take it? How does this person walk, talk? How loud is their voice? Is this person diplomatic or bold? Does this person state strong or moderate opinions? Keep typing, just type in whatever you think belongs to the ask personality. Hopefully everyone is reading the chats as they go by. If you're not, raise your hand. And Dave, if you can check and see if anybody has a question. You guys are great, giving the great answers. Consistent building, cautious, no guessing. Okay, this is all the ask personality. And of course, we're looking, we all fall, more of a doormat. We all fall somewhere along this continuum, for better, for worse. Give credibility to others' knowledge. Okay, so is there anybody who doesn't quite get what ask might be? It's less concerned with the results than the how of achievement. And as a result, is uncomfortable controlling their environment. As a result, these people are described as quiet, cooperative, low-key, or some other words. Well, thank you all for some sheeple, sheep. Not sure what that word is, Chris, Pat Preston, sheeple. So I'm going to switch now to the tell personality. A tell person pays more attention to the speed which the desired results can be achieved. Because the style focuses on the goal, the what's of results. They tend to be seen as initiating, outspoken, and bold. They have high levels of assertiveness and are called tellers. First three words I'm going to throw out there: initiating, outspoken, bold. So if you guys will switch, I got it, thank you. Go to the tell, what you find. Think of descriptive words for the tell. Your experience with people can be positive or negative, so don't filter what you're typing. Just type in overbearing, rigid, know-it-all, bossy. Way of the highway. We are absolutely decisive, type A personality. We are absolutely pushing off the edge to the right a little bit here, which is okay. Controlling. Insensitive, not diplomatic. Confident, doesn't want to listen. Everybody's personalities, I don't know any of you, but your personalities are kind of sneaking out in your comments. Just a little bit. Okay. So we are absolutely getting the extreme end. Fewer people are way out on the extremes, but we all have some of these personalities. When we first meet someone, we evaluate them and how a relationship is what we think they are, whether ask or tell, as it reflects to your own personality. So if you are a very dominant personality that usually knows the answer, people are going to notice, but that's okay. It's just who you are. So some of the other questions: does this person ask questions or make statements? What kind of first impression do you get? Does he use or not use his or her powers? Do they take the initiative? They let others take it? How loud is their voice? Literally, how loud? Is this person diplomatic or bold? So I think that gives us a good idea of the assertiveness scale. Does anybody have a question? Dave, you can see a hand raised. An organization with a lot of assertive people might look like it's in chaos, but it really is better balanced than you imagine. The environment tends to be quite loud. If an organization has a lot of ask people, it tends to be more bureaucratic and slow to respond, sometimes more an effort to compromise. Organizations are most effective when they have both types. So even if one type gets under your skin personally, let it go. So here is a list of some of the items. These were preloaded, so these aren't what you just wrote out, and I can get those to you, but these were preloaded from other issues. You can take a look at those. You kind of have a feeling where you fall. Sometimes we describe people who express more or less of a trait than we do. We use unpleasant words. That is just fine. So one of the things that happens when we're talking to someone is we're always instantly getting feedback. One of the issues when you're on the outliers to this continuum is that you're in reaction mode, and sometimes reaction mode shuts down our listening ability. Just to keep that in mind. We all know that. I'm going to go on to the next grid now. Unless somebody has a question, Dave, I'm expecting you to interrupt if they do.
No, no one is raising their hand. Does everyone know how to work the raising their hand? Go to the, if you don't, go to the participants at the bottom of your screen, and there's a blue hand. Click on that. That'll pop up on my screen, and we'll recognize you. So we're waiting for a raised blue hand if you have a question.
Okay, so we're going to go on to the responsiveness part. And again, there's a continuum from show to control. It is the degree to which people are responsive or show their emotions. I'm turning a page here because I'm having issues with my monitors. Responsiveness deals with the degree to which a person expresses emotions or feelings when relating to others. So a control person, which is where we're going to start, is reserved and may restrict the expression of feelings and emotions. Controlled people have emotions, they just tend not to express them easily or often. This is why they're quite often described as serious, reserved, businesslike. So those are the first three for your chat. Tell me what type of emotional control you think people have if they are a control person. And I don't understand slang, Don. Close to the vest. Some questions for you. Is a person serious or more lighthearted?
Yep. Janet, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, I have a question here. I'm just looking at this like from controlling to showing, and it just doesn't seem to me to be that they're opposites, because as a director, I always control my emotions and then quite deliberately make decisions to show vulnerability or show emotion. So I do show emotion, but I do it in a very controlled way. I would never lose my temper or anything like that.
Let me table this and ask you to come back on after we go through the whole list of these.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to control now. So I don't want to put you off. I just want you to delay that question a little bit. Do you see the person as dramatic and emotional or thoughtful and reflective? Is this person formal or informal? Again, this is a control person. Are their attitudes strict and disciplined or flexible? Does this person communicate in a reserved way or openly? Does this person make decisions on facts or impulse? Do you think the person is easy or difficult to get to know? That's a good question. I guess it depends on where you're coming from. Is this person logical and rational or verbal and intuitive? Does this person show or express feelings? Do you think this person is task-oriented or people-oriented? Is this person dependent or independent? So, oops. Believe me, reacting may inflame the discussion. Task-oriented, okay. Non-communicative, evaluate before speaking, reserved, okay. Okay, so that is the control edge of the spectrum. Now the other edge of this spectrum is the show. A show person experiences and expresses feelings and emotions openly. Since these people tend to share their emotions with other people, they're often described as verbal, informal, and dramatic. So let's talk about the descriptions of individuals at this end of the spectrum. Emotions are on their sleeves. Is a person serious or more lighthearted? Do they communicate in a reserved way or openly? Loud, I guess that answer. Is this person dramatic and emotional or thoughtful and reflective? Again, we're way out on the edges of this spectrum. Is the person formal or informal? Are their attitudes strict and disciplined or flexible? Is the person logical and rational or verbal and intuitive? Is the person
Can you
sure?
back up one slide?
Oops, sorry. Sorry, I bumped it. I know what happened. Okay. Do they make decisions or on facts or on impulse? Do you think they're easy or difficult to get to know? Again, that's a question that depends on where you are on the same spectrum. Is the person logical and rational or verbal and intuitive? Are they dependent or independent? Open, intuitive. May not always think about the consequences of their words and actions. In the clouds, I like that one. It is really interesting, and I'm not looking at who's writing anything. Our reaction to these two items from control to show, and these are some, I keep hitting the keyboard and I apologize. What's on the screen now are responses that were preloaded from other people. And your chats will add into this too. So a show person easily shows feelings, seldom shows feelings. A control person, these are kind of work against each other, serious and dramatic, conservative lifestyle, flexible lifestyle. So you can kind of see where this continuum is going. So the responsiveness, the degree to which one person expresses their emotion to others through voice or facial expression. So that is the summation of what responsiveness is. So let's go back to that question we had. Does this help you? And there's more to it than this. We're going to keep going. Have you, everyone in their mind, placed where they are on this continuum? Your perception of another person's social style is true for you. It may not be true of them. Our perceptions are our reality. Remember that these are all about your perceptions of the person we're speaking of, not necessarily who they think they are, but who you think they are. So we have emotions and we choose whether to show them or not. We can show them if we know how, or sometimes we don't show them because we don't know how. Usually in the responsiveness, we stay within our comfort zone. So was it Janet?
Yeah, it was really interesting to me because as you were reading out all of these things that were allegedly diametrically opposed, I could apply them all to myself, almost all of them. Like I'm controlled and I show my emotions. I'm intuitive and I'm governed by logic. And and it was really interesting that like I seem to have a blind spot here because the things that were allegedly opposites are not opposites in my mind.
Anybody have a comment?
Well, I think that that's the character that she's portraying rather than herself. That this is a necessity to be successful in her role. She needs to take on different characters It may not be herself being described here, but it could be that it's something that's necessary in executing her job.
What do you think about that?
There's some truth to that. There is some truth because, I mean, yes, sometimes in order to get my point across to different kinds of people, I have to be my most logical self. And then to make the same point to other members of a chorus, I have to be my most emotional self and my most emotionally showy self. So, but the irony here is that even though I choose one or the other, they are actually me. Both ends of that spectrum are me, and much of what you were saying, it's almost like they're equally me.
Well, then let's go on to the social styles, which will go ahead.
I just jump in there. I can see exactly what Janet is saying. It's that we are talking about observable behavior here. So how you feel inside, whether you're rational and concise or whether you're impulsive at certain times, it's what the behavior shows at any given moment. So the observable behavior from your chorus members are different, even though you are saying that the two ends of the spectrum are almost identical.
Good point.
That's the way I see it anyway.
That's a very good
point. I have a tendency to agree with her with regard to myself. You know.
Well, we are who we need to be for the job we're doing.
Yeah, business-like as well as informal and fun-loving. I don't see them as diametrically opposed. But when we stand in front of the chorus, our behavior that is observed by the chorus members is what is showing on this responsiveness thing.
Gerald has a question. Bev?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Not barely.
Okay, hold on. We'll just turn it up a little bit. No, I think Janet's got a good point there. It's situational, depending on the information you're working with and the other personalities you're working with. You may go to one side or the other of that central, and Janet seems to have a nice broad central response here.
Thank you. Yes. Well, we're going to move on because this will clear up some things. We're going to move on to the 4 social styles. And the behavioral styles are based on the assertiveness scale. They're based on the responsiveness scale. And there's labels on the 4 quadrants. We're going to describe these on the extreme corners. You'll see little, there's the quadrant. You'll see little controls, or the extreme corners come up here. And hang on, got ahead of me. Okay, so for the control, the first one we're going to look at, the closer you get to the intersection, if you've worked in quadrants before, we'll do this again in another one of these. The closer you get to the center, the less extreme form of behavior. So it might be that you're going to find yourself towards the center more than the extremes. But the farther out from the intersection you move, the more extreme you are. We're going to discuss them in the most extreme, so to avoid confusion. So tonight we're going to work all in the corners here. And the social styles, if you're looking at your book at all, we're on page 7. The major elements of each social style is a driver, expressive, analytical, and amiable. So if we look at the first one, we're going to look at the driver first. People control their emotions and are well-oriented. They are at the extreme of the tell and extreme of the control. I'm sorry. Hang on 1 second. Okay, so again, on chat, we're going to look at things that would describe, and you don't need your notebook for most of this next 20 minutes. Describe things that you would see about a driver. I think I'm hearing an echo. Why am I hearing an echo? Anybody else hear an echo? Nope. Okay. So on chat,
Nope.
we're going to talk about the drivers. Some of the ideas, direct eye contact, firm handshake, impatient with others. Again, these are the extreme of the control and tell personality. Is often critical of other mistakes. Get things done. May be stubborn and unwilling to adapt to changes requested by others. Is very competitive. Pushes their own ideas so they might not listen well to others. Unwavering in direction. Condenses conversations so others may not understand the message, which is a fascinating point. Delegation is a problem. When you are in that much of a control and a tell, you probably don't delegate. They use direct, overt power to get their way. Talk more than doing. Everybody still typing? They're able to change rapidly to their own ideas. Not ideas of others, but themselves. They may be insensitive towards others. They could be workaholics. They could be obsessive about being on time. So these are personality traits that you would notice. Good at poker, that's a good one. That you might notice if you have someone out on the edge of the control or the tell. So we're going to go to the next one. And the next, if you all, I think everybody's got that personality type in mind. We all know some. The next piece of this will be the expressive. Like drivers, they are tell-oriented, but they show rather than control their emotions. An expressive focus is on people and dreams. So if you will, with chat, how does a person deal with ideas? What do they want? What do they need? How do they work? What are their specific needs? What are the blind spots? What do they expect? How could this person improve? This is all, again, about an expressive. Very high on the tell, assertiveness scale, but very much in the responsiveness of the show, not the control. Tend to be visionaries, talkative, directionless, need reassurance. They often lose track of time. They're able to change rapidly on the surface, but they might not fully support it in reality. Language is imprecise, may be excessive, they may be talkers. They may be poor planners who take on too much and then complain about a workload. Don't care what others think, expressive, okay. They're usually very intuitive about people. They like to win, but they are covert in that. They're more comfortable leading a group, and that is their tell personality coming out. Gives and receives compliments. Can be loud, expressive, and fun-loving. Want to do interesting, high-profile work. Squeaky wheel, expressive, persuasive. I'm reading some chats here. Don't care what others think. So, got to refer to a different page here. Hang on a second. And where did it go? Sorry about that. So what we're looking at there is for the expressive, the needs are to be liked, recognition and praise, to work with others, incentives, touch. They improve by organizing. So that's a big hint how they can get better at what they do. Those two items with a driver, their need is actions, options and results to control, and they improve by listening. So because we're on expressive now, they improve by organizing, OCD. think everybody understands this one. So we're going to go on to the next one, which is the far reach of the ask and the control responsiveness. And this is the analytical. The analytical perfects ideas, wants high standards. What do they need? What do they expect? So, chat. How do they work? What situations or experiences will produce tension? Type A personality, micromanager. What are their blind spots? So an analytical likes detailed work and works well alone. Finds conflicts difficult. Condenses conversation, searching for words. Likes to investigate situations. Doesn't like to make decisions or act. Perfects processes and systems. Often confused by people with excessive emotions. I'd have to laugh at that one. Tend to be observers and not commenters. They could be good mentors. They usually provide gentle feedback. They may or may not have a feel for other people. Can't make decisions quickly. I would say that's true unless it is extremely factual and the analytics say this is the only decision you can make looking at the facts. So they want to be perfect. They're usually introverts. Sounds a lot like autism spectrum. In some ways it does. Likes one-to-one conversations, don't like groups. That's very true. Data-driven, unbiased. I think everybody has a opinion, so I'm not sure unbiased would work totally. Okay, and the last one is the amiable. So the amiable content quadrant, like expressive folks, amiable people show emotions, but rather than tell, they ask. The two, upper right and lower left, seem to be easier to define rather than the other two. So everyone wants to be happy. And amiable's focus is feelings and relationships. They develop the style completely. You know, where are their tension points? Where are their specific needs? I will say they need security and trust. They improve by initiating action, which is experience-based. The more they try it, the better they get at it, like everybody else. So they're timid and hesitant to express their own needs. They focus on the needs of everyone, wants everyone to like them. Team building, group consensus, absolutely. Often is drawn to supportive role for a driver or an expressive. So very often they are the helper in this situation. They provide a lot of feedback, but may not pass along corrective feedback, something to look out for. Notice things that drivers may miss, absolutely. Will agree even when not in agreement, accepts delegation, and may have problems delegating to others. Believes a conflict is a failure and works hard to keep others happy. This is like the ultimate in compromise. Indirect eye contact, soft handshake. So what else do we have? Notice things that drivers may miss. May appear weak if they say, I'm sorry too much. It's a good point. What situations produce tension for them? I think any arguing produces tension. So what I'd like to do, we have, what time is it? 7:41. we have about 10 minutes that I would like to, I'm going to go to the next slide. And these are the ones we've been looking at. I guess I should have brought these up while we were working on it. Last one we did, amiable, fulfills ideas, wants security, needs appreciation, expects harmony. So looking at these, I want you to think about where you personally think you fall, what items on here you may disagree with, what items you agree with, what items seem to be in the wrong section. And I'm going to open it up to some discussion. We've got about 10 minutes for discussion. And Dave, you were in charge of seeing hands.
Yep. Raise your hand if you have a question or a comment. Just open mic.
Can we go back to the improve by for the analytical? I don't think we, what can analytical be improved by? I must have missed that.
Declaring a position.
Okay.
I think you didn't say it. I apologize.
Okay.
Their need is for precision and accuracy.
Mm-hmm. I just have to laugh about the page 7, the list, which isn't quite what we've been talking about here, like what's on the screen right now. But I'm looking down that list and I'm thinking, you know, if I was going to hire a director, I would want all of those, all of those positive things, all the way down from the, like on page 7 there on the operating side.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you get everything you want? Good answer. That's a very good answer. Certainly somebody has a comment about that.
Janet, wouldn't you want all of them in due time? And as you said before, you suppress some of your feelings or you have to change your personas to deal with your different singers. And so a director would want to be all things to all people at the right time. It's just that none of us can agree that your right time is my right time.
Okay, I would agree. Like after what 40 some years now as a director, I can see the usefulness of everything on that list. Yeah.
And we're going to keep you doing that until you get it right.
Yeah, because you're not dealing with yourself. You're dealing with an external stimulus, and it can take so many different forms, as you know, as a director.
You know, I think too, the director, although you might want to be everything for everyone, you can't be realistically, because as you are something perfect for person A, you are not that for person B. So no matter whether you, at times you cover all these places at any one time, you are getting the opposite reaction from the opposite type of personality. So these are ways to act and react. A director, you can't be everything to everyone every minute because there's too many people on the opposite sides of the fence on everything. And those are, of course, extremes. But, and I think that's why in a lot of organizations, there are different positions to take the heat off the director or to take the heat off the president or the VP of music or however your group is organized, so that if the issue is with you, they have someone else who is your counterbalance, who they can speak to. And if the issue is with the person who's trying to keep it quiet on the risers, if you have someone else that's sort of your sergeant at arms or whatever, I have no idea what terminology everybody uses these days for riser etiquette, to keep the etiquette going. That doesn't need to be the music director's responsibility because you're in charge of music and performance. You're not in charge of riser etiquette. So to be everything to everyone, and this is somewhat a personal opinion, but to be everything and everyone will put you at a disadvantage with other people. So there's times when you can just step away from that and have someone else have that responsibility. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Steve Dyer has his hand up. Go ahead,
Okay.
Steve. Unmute.
Yeah, and To me, it's situational, and it's knowing and understanding who you are, so that when somebody does something that sets you off or triggers something, then you need to know how you're going to respond so that you don't inflame the situation. You want to make yourself able to work with it. So knowing and understanding these behavioral styles helps you help others.
And along that line, Bev, we're talking not only about directors, but about chapter presidents. And at least in your chorus, you have a common thread that kind of keeps everything tied together. That is the music, the singing, the performance. Whereas with a chapter president, it may even be more complex because you're dealing with personalities that are not tied together by a common thread like we are in a chorus. So it could be even more challenging to a chapter president to deal with all of these external stimuli.
I'm going to jump back to the very beginning here and say that we are using the terms chapter and chorus in different ways because BHS has chapters that are umbrella organizations over the chorus or choruses within their chapter, whereas I think SAI is how BHS used to be, which is there is one chorus belonging. So understand when we say chapter president, they may be president of a few different groups. And that's just to qualify if you weren't here the very first night. I think one of the issues, and we talked about this a little bit in the culture too, is if you look at what is missing, or your chapter president looks at where they prefer to stay and prefer to work, then there's other areas where they prefer someone else to take it. Certainly in the analytical position, there are people that are better organizers and data squishers. And I'm looking at a clock instead of you guys. I should look at a different device here. So there's items that you may be able to do, but you may not want to do. And things that you're really good at, certainly things you can get better at. But if you're bringing along leadership, which is always our goal, is to bring along more leaders in the chapter so the same person, the same people. In a lot of small chapters, there's been 5 or 6 people that have been just rotating through the board in different positions for years. And to build leadership positions, to bring new people, new blood, if you know where you're strong and you're looking for people in areas that can complement you, or you're looking at where they can work with other people to complement them and take some of the heat off, this is a perfect behavioral style chart to kind of refer to for that reason. Oops, where did I go? Hang on a second. Sorry about that.
Okay, we have another question here, Bev. Terry has a question. Go ahead, Terry.
Question or statement, we'll decide that afterward. We seem to have changed tracks to my mind. I thought we were analyzing ourselves and our own personalities, but now we're talking about situational aspects of jobs. Obviously, if you know that there's a set of personality traits that fits a job, finding a person that is that person is a much better choice than finding somebody who's on the opposite side of the scale and trying to force them into that place. In Janet's case, she knows that sometimes she can't be herself. She has to be somebody else for her chorus. But I don't think you can do that early on. She's been at it a long time. It takes a lot of practice to go out of your own personality and act like somebody else and do it so that people don't notice. But if you try to do that early on, it doesn't work. You usually fall back on your own traits, especially if you're under stress, and that is what will come through. So again, which are we talking about? Ourselves or our jobs or whatever?
I'd like to say, follow up on what Terry's saying, that it isn't necessarily about us, it's about who we have to deal with as well. So understanding where other people are, or what other people exhibit, or what their personalities are like, helps us do our job as a leader, either president or course director.
Well, I would agree with exactly what you said, but that doesn't seem to be the direction that we were going in. Because again, doing all this analysis, and Beverly asked us to think about ourselves, and then all of a sudden we talked about, well, what does it take to be a good director? What does it take to be a good president? Which is, again, seems to be a slightly different approach to the subject matter.
I would agree with that unless you are the president or looking for a president, because that's all part of what you do in leadership. When we're looking at ourselves, it's probably the hardest thing to do, in my opinion, is to really get a chance to look at yourself and be honest and say, okay, let's say I'm analytical and maybe too controlling, too dogmatic. You take risks with open-ended problems. You know, there's certain things that go along with an analytical person. But your growth opportunities, if you're an analytical person, are stop being judgmental, worry less, listen rather than argue. You know, the complement to these issues is what you're working on. So if you're analytical, you have perfect ideas, you have perfect ideas, but that doesn't mean that other people in the course or your chapter don't also have perfect ideas. So the complement to all of these personality traits are that there's absolutely an opposite, and how you fit and how it works. So, you know, introspection is probably the hardest thing we have to do. And social styles are, again, it's you're working with the perception of the person you're working with. So I'm not sure I've expressed that well. I'm going to turn it back over to you for comment.
Oh. Gerald has his hand up. Go ahead, Gerald.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Terry, but the thing is, these styles apply to every position and everything in life. Your married life, it's how two people or one on with a group gets along. And if they're conflicting styles on the extreme ends, well, there's where you have conflict. But I think, Rita, it's not about the job. It's about how we interact with other people. That's all I would say there.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second to pull up another document. So keep talking while I do this.
Anybody else?
There we are. I'm having a hard time with this. Dave, certainly have a question.
No. John Englander's last comment, the last one in the chat, is excellent. It seems we all exhibit all these things at one time or another. The key is to know what our default is. It is also equally important to recognize the default of those with whom we are dealing and adapt accordingly. Mm-hmm. So you have to be, I guess, a psychologist as well, and to be able to identify what other people are dealing with.
Yes, knowing your default was exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Because that is what you will fall back on, given any stressful situation where you haven't practiced like your directors are talking about years in advance. You almost always will fall back to your default. Same thing when you're singing on stage. You always fall back to your default. You can practice till you're blue in the face, but then you get up on stage in front of the judges and all the old habits are what actually come out in your performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody see my screen again? I don't know if it's too small to read or not.
Yeah, make it. Okay.
So here's some details on the behavioral styles and first impressions. And remember, we started with driver. Too rigid, impersonal, not having a full explanation for change. So there's areas of concern and there's growth opportunities. I'm going to add this to the slide presentation for everybody so you can see this also. I think this very much is a analyze yourself for your social style, but because we are constantly, whenever you're in conversation, we are in absorption and reaction mode to whoever it is you're talking with. So you're instantly in a position where if you can pinpoint their social style, you have a better chance of communicating well, and you have a better chance of understanding why it is either you don't understand what they're asking, whether you have to restate it. If you're not a good listener, you know you have to listen harder. If you're dogmatic, it may be that your idea is overriding another good idea that's coming out of the field, but because you're a tell personality and not an ask personality, you're not open to other opinions. So that as much as it is yourself, it's also absolutely everybody else. Because whatever your social style is, with our social distancing and we're alone, it doesn't really matter. You can get along with yourself, I hope. But the social style is always within an interaction with somebody else. That makes sense? Comments? Disagreements? No disagreement.
So did you say that we're going to be able to have this to download?
I'm going to add this to the slideshow, this page.
And the slideshow, the slide presentation will come out tomorrow. I'll post that up to the participants tomorrow.
Okay, great.
So one of the things we're going to do, this was part one. And at the end of this, in your package, if everybody got it, they all got it in an email yesterday, I think, from Dave. There is a self-inventory where you identify your social style, why I choose a style, strength of the style, weakness of the style, how I plan to manage my style. But right after that, there's a behavioral styles questionnaire. It's on page 11 and 12. What it does is ask you to answer the questions honestly. And when you're done, you add everything up and get a number. There's a second section that has a different scale. And when you add it all up, you get your versatility score. And that's going to be where you're going to go for next week. Because next week is going to be, we're going to expand the styles because they're so concentrated and dogmatic in this first presentation. We're going to break them up so there's backup styles that will help you be a little more flexible. You may find yourself a little better. We're going to talk about how to develop versatility in responses. We're going to talk about how behaviors under stress change and how the stress affects what you're doing. And then we're going to talk about the expectations during decision processes. Now, there's a really interesting, and I don't know why, these came out of the Healthy Chapter Initiative, why these 2 pages weren't included. And I'm going to put up the other page here as soon as I can figure out how to do this. There we go.
Are those in the facilitator's guide, Bev?
They are, but I'm going to add them to the slideshow.
Okay.
Because you rotate. This is the other style modification strategies. So if you find yourself you're going to kind of plot yourself on this grid. This is just some hints here and there. If you fall under the assertiveness, which is here, tell a little more often, ask a little less often. These are just hints as to how to deal with it. This will all come together at the end of the session. It's hard to do this in 2 parts. It's hard to do this without being able to get into groups and talk about it. These are much better done in person than on Zoom. But so the style modification strategies we'll cover next week too. I'm going to include that though, because they go with a page before and it flips on the screen. So I'm not going to put it up again, so that you can look at what works, how to work better with others, what you're probably too concerned about. You can plot yourself on this continuum. And I'm going to open it back up again for questions. To observe your behavior in the environment at your next Zoom rehearsal meeting, or put yourself back in a board meeting, which have probably been too infrequent during this COVID. And any questions you have. No?
Nope, nobody's raising their hand.
Okay. Well, let me say thank you to everyone for tonight, for some good discussion, for a lot of one-sided talking. We'll do better next week. There's some things in the class next week that are really show and tell and impossible to do, but we'll get there. We'll figure it out.
Thank you so much, Bev.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Bev.
See you next Sunday at 7.
Yep, and to all the participants, I'll be sending out the survey tonight. Tomorrow, I'll be sending out the link to the recording, and I'll also include the slide presentation that Bev presented tonight with the additional slides. So, and I'll also save the chat, and that'll come out in a Word document for everyone to look at. So,
Thanks, Dave.
Great job, guys.
thank you very
Dave.
much again, Bev, for your time, and we'll hopefully see everyone here for the second part, which ties into this.
And please fill out the last 3 pages of your handout, so you're prepared for next week, and we'll start there.
Okay,
You have homework.
Thank you.
good. Thank you again, everyone, and good night. So we'll stop the recording.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.